Already. Hi, everybody. It's Catherine and Claire, and we're here with our final discussion on A Storm of Swords. We're looking at Tyrion 11. Yes, Tyrion 11 to the epilogue with Merritt Frey. And we will be taking a little break after tonight. And we will be starting A Feast for Crows on the 22nd of July over on my new channel. The link is in the description. The schedule is in the description. Whatever you need. Link to Claire's in the description. There's probably a cuddly toy in a washing machine down there. I don't know. But anyone gets that reference apart from Claire? No, maybe not. Yeah, we won't see Tyrion or Jon after tonight. Is that right? I think that's it. Tyrion and Jon are missing from Feast. Sam and Sansa are in Feast. Merritt Frey isn't in for Feast, I suppose. But so we say goodbye to Jon today, which is why I've got my Jon and Ghost, the epic Jon and Ghost scene from Jon 11 today. So yeah, and Feast for Crows will be starting. We'll be doing 5 a week, and then the last week it's 6. So it's 5 a week. So the first week will be the prologue to Brienne 1, and So Claire, I meant to send you some questions actually that I wanted to, we can talk about it at the end, just overall impressions of Storm this time around and things like that. But Tyrion 11 is quite a big one, or did you want to say anything in particular about this week's reading?
Well, I thought just generally the end of the book, this group of chapters was pretty epic. Yeah. All of them, there's lots of action going on, and there's I suppose there's kind of some resolution to some of the story arcs, and certainly we say goodbye to some of the big characters as well. But I think the difference for me this time round is I have a different opinion of I've got a different opinion of Stannis. I'm really suspicious of certain kind of like tertiary characters like Shay. And I think it is a lot of this is like in between me rereading the books on like spin cycle probably about 6 or 7 years ago. I've listened to a lot of podcasts and listened to a lot of theories, and it's hard to kind of put that, and I have said to you before in the discussions that we have on a Sunday, I can see now, having read that chapter, I can see how that theory was made, or I can see, and I'm trying to figure out, is that taking away my enjoyment from this reread? And I don't know, I mean, or is it making it more informed? It's certainly giving me a different opinion on certain characters. And I think, like particularly this next chapter that we're going to have a look at, Tyrion, I do really think that this is, and the symbolism as well in this chapter about him going down and his path is down, that this is there's something that happens to Tyrion in this chapter that he just is never going to be able to come back from. So there's Varys
says that there's no getting away from, like, once you're in that dark place, you can't get out. It does kind of, it is one of those things. Would I be better coming to this without ever having listened or watched or read things online? I kind of feel like it only enhances it for me, to be honest. I've been on a bit of a Preston Jacobs kick. I kind of go through phases where, like, I was on the Order of the Green Hand when you introduced me to them like a couple of weeks ago, and now I'm back on a Preston Jacobs kick and I'm rewatching a lot of his videos, and it's like I'm just so impressed by that guy, whether I agree with him or not. I'm so impressed by the amount of work.
I did mean to watch the Preston Jacobs election videos, which I didn't get around to because I was completely obsessed this week and I watched the entire docu-series this week of Wild Wild Country.
So good, isn't it?
Shit, yeah. It's so like good. Addictive, completely addictive.
Hi, Connie. Connie's in the chat. Connie, I think you said you were watching it as well last week. I believe it was you that said you were watching it last week. It's so good. You can't, like, you have to find out what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
I was talking
just
to my
amazing.
hairstylist during the week, and he was like, "I'm so tempted to just go and meet that woman because she lives in Switzerland."
Really?
Yeah.
Well, she reminds me because I've got like on my mum's side of the family from India, and I've got an auntie who looks just really spookily like elderly Sheila. Yeah. And a sense
She
of
was
humor and
stunning as
everything.
well.
Yeah, yeah. I thought she could. There was something about her that kind of reminded me of Princess Diana. I don't know what. Do you know? I don't know. Just seemed like a kind
The
of
people's princess. The people's culture.
just like just her actual face just was kind of like, yeah, when she was
the
younger in
hair,
those
yeah.
clips when she was younger. Yeah, but that was really, I mean, he was hilarious. I thought he was hilarious.
Yeah.
But there's a couple actually kind of there's a sort of connection with Bogwan, and this is how much I went down the rabbit hole this week, but a connection I think between Bogwan and Lady Stoneheart, but we'll get to it.
Okay. Oh, now I'm dying to hear this. Okay, let's jump into Tyrion 11 because I think I was trying to think of a Tyrion chapter that I enjoyed more than this. I know there's a couple in Clash that we really enjoyed from Tyrion. But I mean, rereading this, it's just such an enjoyable chapter. It's not a particularly pleasant chapter, but it's so well written, this chapter. And just that relationship between him and Jaime. And just seeing Jaime from his point of view, you know, he hasn't seen him since we've been on this incredible journey with Jaime, but Tyrion hasn't. And we've been on an incredible journey with Jaime in just this book.
Yeah.
You have to kind of remind yourself that Jaime is like, we really got a lot out of Jaime in this book. And it's funny, I was watching Alt Shift X today. He has a great video on the Kingslayer on Jaime. And, you know, Jaime originally was supposed to end up on the Iron Throne. But George R.R. Martin has said, you know, some characters you end up, they take you somewhere else. And Jaime has taken him somewhere else. So the Jaime he had mapped out in a Game of Thrones was going to be the bad guy, the guy who just kills whoever he wants to get to the throne. And by storm of swords, it's just a completely different guy. And it's just it's a fascinating redemption arc. And to have Tyrion, who's our favorite from a Game of Thrones, suddenly just go to the Sith, go to the dark side. It's like, whoa. It's just, you don't, it kind of, it shouldn't come out of nowhere, and it doesn't really, but it kind of does in this chapter for some reason. It still surprises me.
Really strange things going on, I think, in this chapter that I hadn't really noticed in previous rereads. Like, why was Varys so specific in giving him instructions on where to go? It's kind of it was kind of like, no, you don't want it. No, you can't, you mustn't, you can't go, but it's 37, 38, 30, you know, he's telling him exactly where it is and how to get there, but like, no, you mustn't, you know, it's terrible, you can't, we've got to leave this place, but it's 239 also, steps up to the left.
Not very many people could have actually gotten in the way that Tyrion gets in.
Yeah.
Like you know, if the Hound had been there, if he was helping the Hound escape, there's no way he could have got the Hound through that passageway. It had to be Tyrion.
That was a clear example, I think, of Varys loading the gun and Tyrion firing the shot, which makes me think, is it really obvious? Am I missing something here of why Varys would want Tywin dead? Because it was kind of like an elaborate, he was using Tyrion, I think, as an elaborate weapon there.
Well, and I think it's, you know, it might be safe to assume that so are the Martells. That this is all an elaborate plan by the Martells.
It's almost, you know, I mean, everybody laughs at Cersei for, oh, she thinks she's so clever, but she's fucking clueless. And it's like, it's so obvious, and she just doesn't seem to be able to see it. Maybe this is what's happening here with Tyrion. He does think he's clever, but so does everybody else. But maybe really the people who are really playing the Game of Thrones, like Varys, know exactly how, you know, he's a piece, he's not a player, but he thinks he's a player. And so does Cersei, but I mean, just Cersei's a bit more obvious. Maybe it's a Lannister thing. But yeah,
I think very clever people are often are easier to manipulate emotionally. More than you think. It can actually be quite surprising. You know, the greatest artists, the greatest writers, they all have these really tempestuous relationships in their past that like where they've acted ridiculous or they've been betrayed or whatever, and it's really informed the way they write something. And you think, oh, how can this person is so together? How could they be informed?
But I mean, if you think about this question is asked a lot of people who join destructive cults. What you're an intelligent person. Why would you make those decisions? Yeah. How could you let somebody take over your life like that and take control away from you?
Are we going to reference Wild Wild Country all night? Because that scene where they go to kill the doctor is kind of like that, because they're all super intelligent, but they're just so pissed off.
How did I get myself here and in this situation? It is because you're driven by this thirst for knowledge, for protecting something that you think is sacred in that situation, in those circumstances. Nobody ever asked them to do what they did. But they did it to protect him, and that was his get out of jail free card, really. I mean, I suppose not in a way with how things ended up, but just it. And
you know, he's not always that predictable. I mean, when it's a pure logical problem, Tyrion isn't predictable. But when it's something emotional, they know he's going to order a trial by combat. They know he's going to kill Tywin. If Jaime tells him this thing, which, by the way, we need to discuss Jaime telling him this thing at this moment in time. Why? What kind of a shit brother are you? Just keep it to yourself. This is what comes back to what we were talking about last week. Sometimes it's better not to tell the truth.
Yeah.
And this is an example where I feel like, is Tyrion any better now knowing this? Is it of any use to Tysha?
Well, you've got to think about this is kind of coming off the backdrop of the previous Jaime chapter where he's all, you know, he's giving Brienne the sword and this is my last chance for honor, and you know, what's the rest of his story going to be in the White Book? So maybe this is the next encounter we get is him and his younger brother, and maybe he just feels that he has to unburden himself of this previous horrible wrongdoing so that he can move forward in this, like, you know, and be this white knight.
I don't know if it...
Maybe it's just bad timing.
I don't know. Like, it's bad what happens to Tysha anyway, regardless of whether she's a prostitute or not. But I mean, there's zero gain from this for Tyrion. Only more hurt and more pain and more guilt and more self-hatred. And Jaime should know that. By the way, Cersei almost certainly knew that and never told him. And Cersei hated Tyrion and still never told him that. Which makes me wonder, maybe she knew that would, maybe there's some sort of love for Tyrion there from Cersei's point of view. I don't know, but it's like she would have certainly known this story, right? There's no way.
Well, it's a bit like the way that the siblings and family are like with each other in this series. Is that there's a lot of crossover, I think, here in some of these chapters. Like Winterfell in this group of chapters is almost like a character again. I really do feel as though, you know, we're almost missing Winterfell point of view chapters at this point, because everybody's dreaming about Winterfell so much. But there is this thing about I did it to teach you a lesson. I'm doing this to teach you a lesson. I'm hanging you out of the moon door to teach you a lesson. I'm making sure that all the soldiers rape your whore wife to teach you a lesson. So there's all, and you as the reader, you kind of left, you're like, this is such twisted logic. This is just like, what is the point of this? What is because actually what's happened here, and it's here in this chapter, is Tywin's life was destroyed because of how he destroyed his children's lives. End of
Yes.
story.
And
That's it. And
had-
and yet his biggest goal in life was to make sure that the Lannisters were around forever. Just
And we had that like that in the last Jaime chapter, him disowning Tywin as his father. And if we didn't have Jaime point of view chapters, this is where you'd go. Is Jaime in on this with Varys? Is Jaime even telling the truth here? Does he want Tywin dead as well? Like, but we know that that's not Jaime. But at least he doesn't think about it in that sense, so it couldn't be him. And later he feels very bad about letting Tyrion go so that he could kill Tywin. But if you didn't have his point of view chapters, you'd be forgiven for thinking there was a conspiracy here with Jaime and Varys, because it does seem like, but for Jaime tells him that he was not going up to the Hands room and killing Tywin. There's no way. So I don't know how Varys would have encouraged that without that key moment happening with Jaime. Although it must be said, like, he's obviously devastated by what Jaime says. He's almost more devastated when Jaime asks him, "Did you kill Joffrey?"
yeah.
Like, that's when he has a real guttural reaction. Connie says maybe Varys knew he would be taken out by Tywin, or used Tyrion to cover up Tywin being poisoned by Oberyn, the deadly constipation. Yeah. And Connie agrees with me that it's awful that Jaime told him. And Jaime's been so self-centered that he just does not get it. He never had to get it. I suppose he's still transitioning into being a decent person. And the honourable thing here may have been not to tell Tyrion the truth. But he's so set on having an honourable legacy now and paying his debts that he'd prefer to tell him the truth. Like, I mean, for Tyrion, it's like, oh, here's my big brother coming to rescue me. He doesn't need a reason. He doesn't need to hear that Jaime's paying a debt. He's his brother, and that's enough for Tyrion.
But he does say, "Thank you, brother, for my life," and it's true. If Jaime hadn't have saved him, he would have been killed. So
would Jaime have saved him without that knowledge of Tysha? I think he would, right?
I think he would. I mean, I think they had there was this gnawing doubt in the back of Jaime's mind that he didn't know. I mean, maybe he didn't go to free him. Maybe he didn't go to assist an escape. Maybe he just went to find out the answer to that question because he couldn't figure it out himself. Would Tyrion really have gone that far? Yeah. And he didn't have an answer for it. So of course he comes right out and asks him if Tyrion did it. And that's so horribly offensive to Tyrion. How could you possibly think I would do that?
Yeah.
That he comes out with everything and again, these words that go round and round and round and round in Jaime's head in the next book about Cersei fucking Lancel, Kettle Black, probably Moonboy too.
Yeah.
That's when, and again, there's no reason to do that. There's no need to take those actions. There's no need to say those words, but they do.
Yeah, they're both hurting one another here, and for no reason. Like, there is no reason for Tyrion to do this to Jaime. Jaime didn't give the orders.
Yet they're both recognizing each other that they are. That they're broken. I mean, Tyrion thinks it's hilarious because he's always had that badge, and it's like, okay, now my brother's been dragged down a peg or two. So he's able to see what Jaime's trying to hide from everybody else, which is, yes, I'm broken.
The only thing I can think of that why Jaime, not just to ease his conscience, but it will keep Tyrion away. This hatred for his family. Because we've said it over and over again, Tyrion is the truest Lannister. He will protect his family, even though he hates them. He won't turn his back on his family like Cersei and Jaime. So maybe Jaime was driving Tyrion away.
Yeah, that was his reason, to make sure he never came back again.
Because we don't get that POV, right? We don't get the reason. We're left at the end of the last Jaime chapter, him saying, he needs to go pay a debt, but he doesn't. We don't get the thought process behind it. It's not like Tyrion has to probe that much to get the information out of him. He willingly offers it up almost. So it's a very strange one, but yeah. So as you mentioned, Varys puts up a very weak protest. No, please don't go up there. No, don't, please. It's like Willy Wonka.
Yeah, that's
Please, no,
precisely.
Yeah. Would you like the crossbow? Here's the crossbow. So here's my question: was Shay definitely sleeping with Tywin?
Yeah, I think so. And I think that for me, this proves, I mean, you could look at it either way, but for me, it proves that she's working for somebody, but not for Tywin. She's putting herself into the right position where she can get the most amount of information, and she's moving around in these kind of power circles. So maybe she started with Tyrion with always the intent to find Tywin, but I think just the fact that she's there in Tywin's chambers shows that she's working for somebody else, not Tywin.
See, I wondered, was she a plant in the chamber? Because we don't actually see her with Tywin. And we don't actually...
Oh my God. So this really could have been,
so
everything you're doing here in Victarion has been set up by somebody else.
Exactly. This is my question, because Tywin doesn't even react as if it could be her that's coming into the privy.
Yeah. So and he doesn't mention anything about...
She could be like, we don't know why. I still feel
so many things that could have gone wrong there, though. I mean, Tyrion could have said at that point that all the shit that you've given me about bringing whores to King's Landing, and look who's in your bed. And if, Tywin could have been like, I've no idea what you're talking about.
But it's almost like what kills her is when she calls him Giant of Lannister.
Yes.
Which is echoing the words from the trial and reminding him of the betrayal. Because he was still using her as kind of a psychological crutch to get through the cells, even after the trial. He admits that to her. But it's almost like, just to be sure, because again, Varys doesn't know. Varys has no idea that Jaime is going to say what he says to Tyrion. That's completely just played. That's a complete
anomaly.
Accident. It's a lovely, advantageous coincidence. But really, what Varys is actually maybe hoping for is that he sees Shay, and that's why he kills Tywin. Because I've wondered, maybe in the last year or so with that scene, we don't actually, even in the TV show, we don't actually see Tywin and Shay together. We don't actually see them interact. So it could be that she was a plant, and maybe she didn't even know why she was there. Maybe she thought that she was going to get to go with Tywin or with Tyrion.
Somebody could have said to her, it's all, he's been freed, he's going to be reinstated as the Hand, get into his bed with the hand of, and
Yep.
But she did look
surprised,
shocked. She did look shocked to see him.
I don't know. There's something. I mean, she knows Varys. Maybe she thought that she'd been summoned.
I mean, God, you'd have to know exactly what time Tywin goes for a shit. You'd have to, all of these kind of.
Yeah, and it's a bit of an odd time to take a shit if you've got somebody waiting for you in bed.
Yeah,
right?
I've always thought that. Yeah, I've always thought it's not particularly romantic. And also, you're right, it is such a coincidence that where he comes out, the crossbow's right. It's almost like things have been set up.
And the security guards go away and everything is just... I just feel like... I don't know, there's something not quite right about it. Tywin doesn't behave like somebody who has a woman in his room waiting for him. It's just a weird situation.
I wonder if Varys and the Red Viper were in on this together.
I mean, there is a theory you were talking about before that Shay might be a sand snake, right? Or
Yeah, and also an even older theory, which is the Oberyn poisoned Tywin, and that's why he
yes,
stank and what
yes.
have you.
Mhm.
In which case, this could be Varys's elaborate way of getting rid of Tywin, making Tyrion think that he'd killed him when actually he hadn't, because he was already effectively dead from being slowly poisoned by the Red Viper, which is why his body stank after, no, that still wasn't, that was really heavily referenced in the books, and there was never any resolution to it.
And I just think it's such a coincidence. The Jaime stuff is just incidental. Varys could have done all of this on his own. He could have said, your father's up there with Shay. Sorry, he betrayed you, and that's what gets Tyrion up there. It's happily for
I
Varys. It
wonder if
works
this is some
out
sort of,
even better.
maybe it's Varys and Doran, and like by proxy through the Red Viper of some old Targaryen pact or something,
We do
or
have that Martell, Arianne, Aegon kind of stuff coming up. It's hard to know if how much they are working together there. The Blackfires and the Martells might make a little bit more sense than a Targaryen Martell.
yeah.
So, I mean, we'll have lots to talk about when we get into Feast and Dance. But
Whew.
oh, hi, MP. Welcome along. She says, my lord, and is surprised to see Tyrion. And yeah, Tywin was poisoned, like we said. Yeah. I'm certain he was poisoned too. But yeah, it's.
But it could have been a tag team between Varys and Oberyn the Red Viper.
Like, it's possible that Shay didn't know why didn't like. It's probable that Shay didn't know she was going to die. But I mean, if this is a huge Martell thing, maybe she's kamikaze in it for like the Martell cause. I mean, so Oberyn kind of does that too, right? He has the Mountain killed pretty much, and yeah, he still insists on getting what he needs out of the Mountain, and it's a bit unnecessary because he kind of gives his life for this cause as well. So it's plausible, I guess, that Shay could be giving her life for it. It's a little bit strange that I still do think that Shay got Tyrion through Bronn and maybe Tywin as well, but I'm after Storm of Swords, I'm even more convinced that Tywin knows more about Joffrey's death than.
Oh yeah, completely.
And maybe to the point, I mean, in the show, the Tyrell, Olenna has confessed to killing Joffrey, but we haven't had that in the books. So I'm kind of rethinking Joffrey's death in a whole new way. And what do you think Tywin was telling the truth about that there was no way that Tyrion was going to die, that he was going to send him to the wall?
Maybe. He was still going to send him to the wall. I mean, I believe that more than I don't believe it, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think he would have wanted. I don't think he would have wanted to kill one of his children, even if he really despised Tyrion. I think there was a kind of grudging respect for him that he couldn't. And I think when Tyrion says, "I'm you, writ small," I think deep down Tywin would probably have agreed with that.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
And I think he needed Tyrion at the wall.
Yeah, that's that. It would have been
mean,
handy.
He must have got wind of the fact that Stannis is there, or at least on the way there.
Yeah.
Tywin does not get he does not get information like that. So it wouldn't surprise me if he was thinking, you know what, let's just bloody get Tyrion up there. I need somebody up there that I can trust. Janet Slint? No. Tyrion. I need Tyrion up there, and he's been there already. So and it gets rid of him. So without killing him, without kind of that on the Lannister books, you know, that somebody has been executed for kingslaying. 2 of his sons now are kingslayers. So, I mean, I feel like Tywin was trying to control all of this, but it played right into the Martells and Varys's and perhaps the Tyrell's hands. But I mean, we talked about it before. Just the fact that, and he does it like he says it in this chapter. He's trying to convince Tyrell that, you know, that Tyrion can go to the wall. It's Tyrell that wants him dead because, after all, the cup that poisoned Joffrey, at least they think it's the cup, that that's the one that could have poisoned Marjorie. Although Preston Jacobs makes a good argument that it was Tyrion's pie that was poisoned and not the wine. A very good argument for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you want to check out the Purple Wedding video by Preston Jacobs. MP says, Connie says she kept asking when she'd get her clothes and jewels back, off-putting to Tyrion. Yeah, and maybe, you know, that's how Varys lured her into the Hand's room. You know, maybe someone put it in her head that she would get them from Tywin. That's very possible, which is probably why she couldn't resist putting the chain of the hand on. And MP says Shay also does mention Tywin and has the chain, so if anything, she knew she was there for Tywin. So she was there to sleep with Tywin, I guess, right?
Again, you could look at it. There's 2 sides to that, isn't there? She's there because somebody has put her there, and that Tywin's got a bit of a darker history than he leads everyone to believe, or she's in his employ and she always has been. You know, you could look at that a number of different ways, but I tend to think that she's there, she's working for somebody, but it's not Tywin.
It could be both.
Could be, she could be, she could be playing everybody. But she is somebody.
More to her than meets the eye. I mean, we met her back in a Game of Thrones. I feel like, you know, George has said that most of the story is mapped out in Game of Thrones. We meet Bronn and Shay at the same time, pretty much, right? Or sorry, not Bronn, but definitely Shay at the same. Bronn introduces us to Shay, to Tyrion. So, anyway, final question: where do whores go?
Yeah, well, this to me, I think, especially because it's repeated so many times, like almost annoyingly so in the next book, the next couple of Tyrion chapters, that she is somewhere she can't have died, and that Tywin did physically send her away somewhere. So where could, you know, that could be Essos, it could be the Silent Sisters, it could be, but she's been sent somewhere, definitely.
MP says the Happy Port. And hi, Sunny and Bran. Thank you for joining us. Does anyone else have a theory as to where do whores go? I mean, I kind of don't want to find out. I would like, whores, I'm going to be asked now by every single comment. If you use the word whore, I'm going to be asked to allow that comment. But I feel like this is going to be the thing that haunts him the most, right? Funny says whores go to Peter Baelish. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah,
makes sense to me. Have we met her, Taisha? Do you think we've met her?
No, but there's a YouTuber many years ago who doesn't do videos anymore, and he thought that we've met her son and daughter in Penny and Groat.
Right, okay.
And that the reason they're called Penny and Groat because it relates to the Lannisters and the Lannister money and the fact that she was given gold, and she must have got pregnant by being raped 100 times or whatever by Tywin's men. And that that maybe actually she got pregnant with Tyrion, and that Penny and Groat are his children.
It doesn't give us much faith in the men of the Westerlands, does it? That so many soldiers were willing to do that. I mean, we already know the type of people that Clegane hangs around with, so suppose we shouldn't be that.
There is something about that, like the penny and the groat is the lowest denomination monetary wise, which is the complete opposite of the Lannister gold. That I don't know. I do think there is something. If nothing else, it's quite a poetic concept.
It is, yeah.
The penny is named penny for a reason.
It wouldn't surprise me if we never get answers to those questions, because I feel like Tyrion has to be a tortured character for his.
Oh, I think that there's going to be. I think I came to a realization actually reading the epilogue this week about Cat and Lady Stoneheart that's like now is quite obvious to me, which leads into there's going to be lots of unanswered questions that where things are just put in there for a literary device for a specific purpose, and that's why it's very different from the TV show, especially in terms of Lady Stoneheart. I genuinely thought that we would see her at one point, but I don't think we ever will.
No,
in the TV show. And I think it was only reading the epilogue this week, last night actually, that I suddenly realised, oh right, okay, I completely see the difference now.
No, we're definitely not, because it's the one thing that's really been quite difficult for George and the TV show. He's spoken about that a lot. Lady Stoneheart was like, right, this is. I think that's when he started to pull away, when they just didn't put her in. He started.
Maybe, but I think there is. That's and I think this is where one of the key differences between book and TV show, and I can kind of see it now. But we'll get to that when we get to the epilogue. But in answer to your question, I think yes, we will have lots of unanswered questions, and I think some of them are probably going to be quite big as well.
And some of them will be left as things for us to go on little treasure hunts in other books in this world.
Yes, definitely.
Because I'm sure he's got a lot planned for this world. And I just, the other thing that came to mind when Varys is down in the cells with Tyrion, like he's got a great familiarity with the cells. Like it's not that surprising. But that maybe, I wondered, would he have had some kind of interactions with Jaqen and Roarg and Biter?
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I'd totally forgotten about this. I remembered about the black cells. I'd totally forgotten that there was a fourth level underneath the black cells. And of course, we're talking about similarities with Inception and how that's like the fourth level of like consciousness, and once you get there, there's no coming back from that, which is pretty much exactly what Varys was saying. But he also said there are things you wouldn't wish to see. Like what?
Yeah.
Like what's down there that you don't want to see? I can't remember that. That's the first time I read that this week and thought, what the hell is he talking about?
I don't know. Yeah, I was thinking about that as well. Where did they keep Ned?
They kept him in the black cells.
Well, they didn't. It wasn't that far down, though, right?
That was the third level, and then the fourth level is where they were making their escape in this chapter. But yeah, there are things down here that you wouldn't want to see.
Patricide is, matricide and patricide are as bad as it gets. And
well, this is going to have a long-lasting psychological effect, definitely, and we can see that, I think, in Feast. Tyrion, I think, just as previous rereads, was one of my favourite characters, and from this chapter, and I was never a great big fan of Tywin to start with, but after this chapter, and especially just how whingy he is when he appears in Feast, when he gets, over to Essos, and it's like, oh no, he's just like, I used to love curling up in bed thinking, oh yeah, Tyrion chapter, and then it became like, oh God, here we go again, listening to just moan. But okay, it's that, like, it's the psychological trauma of what he's been through. But I don't think he killed Tywin. I think that's going to be the get out of jail free card for Tyrion later on in the story. Is no, you might have put the final shot in his belly, but he was already dead.
So, but he'll have to get that information from Varys. Varys later kills Kevin with the crossbow as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
So,
and I think he probably, if he'd have had somebody like Tyrion around in his game at the time, it wouldn't have been him that needed to do that. He would have sent somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
In fact, for his plan of freeing Tyrion, he could still have gone and killed Tywin and Shay if he needed to himself, or had somebody else do it and blamed it on Tyrion. Like Tyrion actually doesn't have to make that decision necessarily. But I think with or without Jaime, Varys is going to encourage him to go up those stairs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. So we're on then to Sam 5. Sam is doing a little bit of scheming here. Now we'll talk about Stannis. I actually like Stannis in this chapter. I thought he was good in this chapter.
Well, yeah, he knocks Slint down a peg or two, doesn't he? Immediately.
And a bit confusing in this chapter, but in that, like, I feel, yeah, he doesn't want to own the whole R'hllor thing, and it's making him a bit uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So we'll get into that, but yeah, Janos Slint is pushing against Night's Watch protocol. So we mentioned the Preston Jacobs the election, the Night's Watch election, and just how there's a suggestion in his video that maybe there was a bit of a bit of fudging of the numbers to get Jon over the line. I don't think so. I think Janos pushes it here. I think he is opening himself up as somebody he's new to the Night's Watch. He doesn't get it. He's not taking the vow seriously. He's still kind of kowtowing to the king and to the laws of Westeros, and very much all about him and not about what's best for his brothers. So I think he kind of shoots himself in the foot here a little bit. And yeah, I just want to ask you about the 997th Lord Commander. So Jon is 998th Lord Commander. Is he, or is he 999th? Do they count the 13th Lord Commander?
Well, he says 997 Lord Commanders in unbroken succession.
Right.
Which, to me, means that they've included the Night's King.
Right.
Because if they hadn't, there would have been a broken succession, wouldn't there?
Yeah. It's a bit confusing because they also say that they wrote the Night King off the books.
Yeah.
So you could write him off the books.
And still say it was an unbroken succession and we've buried that part of our history. It's just we're erasing it.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that he makes a point of saying that it's also unbroken succession.
But the Night King ruled mainly from the Night Fort. So perhaps there was somebody else, at Castle Black or somewhere else that was in control there, that people then just said, okay, now you're the Lord Commander, and you've kind of always been the Lord Commander because you were here and that guy was down there doing whatever he was doing. So we'll just ignore that ever happened. You've been our kind of leader all the time. I don't know. It's just they make such an effort to point it out so many times, especially in this chapter, and it feels like Jon is so kind of important that it would make more sense for him to be 999.
Well, it would, but would that not make it obvious that there's this thing about the number 1,000?
Well, it could, and it would be nice that whoever takes over from Jon, it's Dellar said in the show, isn't it? It would be nice if the 999th Lord Commander was Ed, and then the 1,000, if there is a wall and a need for the Night's Watch, it would be nice if it was Jorah Mormont.
Yeah.
I think that would be kind of a nice fitting tribute, but or maybe there isn't going to be in 1,000th
I
one.
think there's some significance to the 1,000th Lord Commander. I think that's going to be when the wall comes down. And I think if they'd have made Jon the 999th, or Jon would have been the 1,000th Lord Commander, that would have made it too obvious. It's here again in the epilogue. In the epilogue, which is quite significant because we get the introduction of Lady Stoneheart, so there's that connection there with the old gods. And when Merritt Frey says, when he's scared and they're about to hang him, and he says he'll send, talking about his father Walder Frey, he'll send 1,000 swords. Again, it's like some kind of obvious code that's written into every 3 or 4 chapters, and it can't. I mean, somebody, surely his publisher at some point would have said to him, "You're using this too often." It's like really, like it's if it was just a number that he randomly picked for, this is a number that I'm using to mean a lot of XXX, but it's not. He's using it far too often. So I think there is, there's something's going to happen when we get to the 1,000th Lord Commander, if we ever do.
So Bran says it doesn't literally mean 1,000 years. Most of the time, it's more symbolic for a long time. Connie says maybe it was part of the pact. When you hit 1,000 men, time is up. There could be maybe. Oh, you mean like it's kind of like Y2K for the Night's Watch? Y1K.
Yeah.
When you get to 1,000, everything resets and nothing works. Their alarm clocks stop working and all that kind of thing. So we have.
But would the others have been on the march if this was the election for the 487th Lord Commander? Probably not. There's some significance, I think, to that number.
Yeah. Aemon is great in this chapter. Fantastic. He's such a Night's Watch man. He really is. To the point where he's even defending Slynt against Stannis. As much as he doesn't like Slynt and probably wants Jon to take over, he's definitely defending Slynt here, saying to Stannis that when somebody comes to Night's Watch, everything they've done before is forgiven. So he basically stopped using Slynt's past against him. If he's going to be the Lord Commander, he's going to be the Lord Commander. But I mean, Stannis is savvy enough to know that Slynt is going to be a Lannister man, and seems to be testing him out. But Stannis wants castles and the gift, so that they can light fires and they can keep everybody at bay. And this seems to be a plan to be a king of the North, almost, right? It doesn't seem to be just about the others for Stannis. I wonder, does he even believe it fully?
Well, he talks about the ancient enemy, doesn't he? But whether or not that's just spin from Mel, and that is
in Clash, he talked a lot about like whatever Mel was talking about at the time, Lightbringer or whatever it was. And now he's gone well over to the other side and talk about the others and all that kind of thing, because that'll win him support in this part of the country. If he was at the other part of the country, maybe he'd be talking about dragons. I don't know, but it seems, I don't know, it's hard to figure out what's going on in Stannis's head, which I suppose is the point, because we don't get a POV, but he definitely he doesn't like when Mel calls him the prince that was promised and Azor Ahai. And I wonder, is that because Mel has explained to him what's involved in that, what the sacrifice is you'll have to make. You'll have to give up your daughter, potentially. Because let's face it, I don't think he'd mind tempering a sword through Selyse. He might even do that night just for the crack.
Yeah, but, just on a Thursday night.
Yeah. Just when she's racking his head. But I feel like Mel has already explained to him what Azor Ahai actually means. And that's why he's kind of very rejecting her kind of title here. Is it a good plan to fight the others, to light all these fires, or does it just draw attention to the fact that there's more people there now? It's hard to know.
I think Stannis feels that he needs to fight and win a battle to be a hero, not necessarily the hero, but to be a hero so he can win his throne legitimately.
Like Robert.
Yeah.
Right. He needs his Warhammer moment.
Yeah, yeah. So he's there in the, you know, fighting off the wildlings and having the Night's Watch kind of fawning all over him and saying, "Oh, you got, you know, you were the only king that responded," and that helps him and helps his ego, and that's precisely what Davos said to him as well. You know, you need to win. You're not just going to be handed the kingdom; you need to fight for it. So I think that's, you know, and he's just jumping onto any bandwagon, I suppose, or any kind of cause or anything that looks like, okay, I can jump on this and come out of this being why isn't Stannis king? Why are we all think, well, you know, of course he should be. And it, you know, I mean, I suppose at some point, it wouldn't have surprised me if this did happen and there was a big, I mean, I don't know if this is how the story's going to go in the books in the Winds of Winter, but if Stannis is victorious and everyone does look at him and say, why isn't he king? Why isn't he king? That he does ultimately turn around and say, I'm also going to forsake this ridiculous Red God religion, because he's just not feeling it.
Even though he's, for some reason, insisting that the wildlings take it as their religion, which makes me wonder how serious is he about winning over the wildlings, or does he think I'll make it so difficult for them to bend the knee that I'll have to take them out later on because he doesn't really want wildlings around?
Maybe.
Because it just seems
so
I
don't know. I mean, he's been asking Sam, isn't he, about are they honourable? Or he was asking Sam or John about, you know, who are these wildlings? They seem to just be like ordinary men to me.
Maybe he let them off the hook if they behave themselves. Yeah, so he wants the gift and has that great line, you know, a gift given can be given again, which is regifting, and not the thing to do, Stannis. But we have some interesting information here. There's a bit of dragon glass sleuthing going on.
I didn't realise this, and I thought they made it up in the TV show.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, right, okay, they've now decided that there's dragon glass at Dragonstone. How convenient. But actually, yeah, it's there in the books. I didn't get that the first time around.
There's so many little things going on in this chapter that it's easy to overlook certain things. So they also describe the others as demons, which is what they use to describe the aftermath of the doom in Valyria, don't they? That demons came upon. I think I could be misremembering that. Can anyone remind me of that? But it just stuck out to me. So the demons, the others, can be. I think that's what Mel uses to describe them. Demons. I think that's how she describes them. So they can be killed with dragon glass, and we presume Valyrian steel. And that the whites are creatures of necromancy. Steel and fire will do for them. And it made me wonder, in the TV show, which I know it's a different thing, but the suggestion is you kill the Night King or you kill the White Walkers and the whites will die. But Mel seems to be looking at them as two different things here. So I wonder, is that true? I wonder, will all the whites just die? I mean, they're easy to kill, probably.
Well, they will be with dragonfire, won't they? That you can just wipe them out.
Drop dead because okay, Beric. If Beric had outlived Thoros, right? Actually, it's happening on the show. Beric is outliving Thoros on the show. So it's not like the person who brought him back to life. His existence isn't contingent on that other person being alive. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wonder, will the whites just drop, or will it be like Shaun of the Dead, where they just tame all these whites in their garden sheds. Bringing some Arbor wine down to them.
Set up a white welfare society.
Yeah.
I don't know. Really, I suppose it depends on the source of the magic, where the magic comes from, because the feeling is that the whites are like thralls to the others, aren't they? They're like animated, resurrected by the others, and that's. So it's not necessarily the others; it's the source of the magic. So if you wipe out, so if the others are wielding ice magic, which we know very little about, maybe that's the source of their magic is ice magic rather than the fire magic of R'hllor, then you can get rid of a white and the magic would still be there, like manifested inside of you could get rid of another, but the white would still exist. I don't know.
I feel like they're going to take out the army of the whites for the most part before they even get near the others. That's how I feel it'll go down.
I mean, you'd think if again, I'm getting show and TV mixed up here with kind of like big endgame stuff, but I would imagine the whites would be quite easy to take out with just dragonfire, like aerial assault. And then what you're left with is these spooky 12, 13 characters wandering around who can, like, you know, throw ice spears like bazookas at dragons. So, you know, they are a force to be reckoned with. But
so what did you make of Aemon being suspicious of a Lightbringer? And he remarks that there's no heat.
Yeah, he does. He didn't want to
see it, he just wanted to feel it, right?
Yeah, I think he just sees Stannis as yet another fraud. I think that's all that's done is it's just, okay, is it really the sword of Azor Ahai? Oh no, it's not. He's just a fraud.
And and there's not enough heat behind Mel's powers to be of any effect. I think that's what that he's getting at as well.
Yeah.
Also, Lightbringer may not be a sword, as you know, so it could have been a test. And there's something else. I see. I've watched too much Preston Jacobson the last week. He's something. He's something else that somebody was looking for information from Aemon about his brothers, and that may have something to do with the actual nature of what Lightbringer is. Like, what is Lightbringer? It may not necessarily be a sword. It might figuratively be something. It could be something else.
Just shedding light on something.
Yeah. A lot of people think it's Dawn. So we'll see. And I loved the interaction with Malister and Pike. Hitting, you know, the lowborn Pike who just thought, oh yeah, let's get a bastard in there and really like stick it to the Lords. Yeah. And then Malister, who Sam appeals to Malister by saying, you know, his brother was a king, his father was a hand and a lord, and it's like, oh yes, John. Oh, yes. It's just very well done, very, very well done.
And I think it's the thing about Sam is, and he says himself in this chapter that I think he said it in a previous chapter to John, that Gilly made him braver. This is why he's doing these things, he's saying to himself, because Gilly made me braver. Just being around Gilly has made me braver. But actually, if you think about it, what Sam does is not for himself, it's for other people. He was brave for Gilly. He's being brave for John. He's absolutely he's not craven whatsoever if he's putting himself out there to be brave on behalf of other people. And that is actually what most people should be commended for being brave for, is on behalf of other people who can't defend themselves or stand up for themselves or have a voice or win in a fight or whatever. Somebody is brave enough to stand up for them. And that's exactly what Sam is. So but he justifies it with, oh, it's Gilly that's making me braver. I'm doing this for her. And you know, just being around her. But I just think he's so sweet sometimes. And he's being very clever and he is being very manipulative, and he is being very brave. But he's not doing it for himself.
This is how he's gonna. I cannot wait for Sam chapters. I can't wait for them in wins. I'm just so excited.
Yeah.
Because this is how people never expect Sam is scheming. And a White Walker would never expect Sam to kill them. So it's just every time he's underestimated, and it's because, like you said, he underestimates himself every time.
Well, he's the thing about Sam is he uses. I think I've got support from Maester Aemon. I'm not really sure. I think I have. So that small nugget of I think he might be in my corner is enough for me to say, oh, well, Maester Aemon says this and Maester Aemon sent me. But, you know, he doesn't come straight out and say it, but he definitely kind of alludes to it, which is very clever.
Aemon is so clever. He doesn't have to, he only needs to drop a certain amount of information for it to penetrate. He knows how intelligent Sam is. And even the stuff about Janos Slynt, where he's on Janos Slynt's side in the face of Stannis and all that kind of thing, actually, that's sending a different message to Sam. The message it's sending to Sam is, yeah, we should forget about a man's crimes from the past, but Janos Slynt is probably the reason why a lot of men are here. So will he forget the crimes of the past? And would that necessarily be the kind of Lord Commander that my brothers want? My brothers deserve a second chance, and they deserve somebody like Jon. And that's, you know, when Pike says to him, we need a fighter more than ever. I mean, there is no one but Jon. I mean, the next chapter is Jon fighting. So it is Aemon is sending these kind of covert messages in everything.
Yes. So Sam asks Maester Aemon, could I do something? And Maester Aemon says, could you? Could you? And that's all he says. Not do this and here's your instructions and this is what you need to do. He just nudges him in the right direction.
And also, and we've seen this from the beginning of Storm of Swords with Sam, with the Mormont's ravens, you know, and Aemon and Mormont, that giving Sam information and maxims to live by, but knowing that Sam is intelligent enough to abandon absolutes and maxims when they need to. So he knows when it's important to omit the truth, like with Pike and Mallister, and, you know, say, oh, well, Stannis, you know, I think Stannis is going to, you know, give it to Mallister, and I think Stannis is going to give it to Pike, and like it's like it's you know it's a lie, but
Classic.
It's a lie that's necessary at that time. So somebody who's got a great moral integrity like Sam knows what the greater good is in this situation because of the way Mormont and Aemon have prepared him.
Yeah.
Not because of the way his father had prepared him. Also that Stannis, you're not the kind of son I'd expect Tarly to have. It's like, and the Sam's like, yeah, I'm not the kind of son he expected to have either. It's like, yeah, okay, nice one, Stannis. How lovely. But yeah. So is there anything else from the Sam chapter then?
I don't think so. Oh, I just thought it was quite funny that Cotter Pike, when he said we need a fighter, not someone who sits in his tower and writes letters, and Cotter Pike was the person who writes, or his Maester writes the famous letter from Hardhome.
Yes, yeah.
Dead things in the water.
Yeah. I like Pike and Mallister, I have to say.
Yeah.
And you know, yeah, I really do like them. And going into the Jon chapter as well, Jon 11, they come across really well as well. And yeah, so we'll see lots of Salmon Feast. And then on to Jon 11. I'm one of those people that loves Jon. I love Jon. I love Jon chapters.
I do like chapters at the wall. Yeah.
And I'm gonna miss him. We won't have him now in Feast. And it'll make me really sad when we get to the end of Dance, because I don't think we'll have any more Jon chapters after Dance. So it's doubly sad. But yeah, I got to the end of this chapter and I always I'm one of those people that wells up with the ghost moment. So I love it. So yeah, so it opens with, okay, well, I'm not sure. It opens with a lucid dream / vision
Mm.
with Rob and Kat. It's a bit of a strange one, this, that Kat is still haunting him. It's almost like he admits in this chapter he really wants Winterfell. He's always wanted Winterfell. It's a hunger in him. And then he wants his son, and he really wants his son, but then, he feels like Cat is the one stopping him. And then in the end, once Ghost comes back into his life, he's like, "No, this isn't what I want." So it's a
I
bit of a strange
think
one.
it's the reason is what we're getting is remember Kat, everyone. Yeah, we'll just mention her. We'll just drop her in here and mention her, and then we get to Sansa's chapter. Yeah, let's give you a big reminder of who Kat actually is,
Yeah.
and then we get the epilogue at the end. So I think that's probably why.
Yeah. Although
It's
it is
leading us up to it.
I mean, a lot of John's self-worth comes, or lack of thereof, comes from the way Kat treated him. So it's not surprising that while mulling over this decision that Stannis has left him with, that he thinks about Kat's reaction. And also
Absolutely.
about Rob and about what it would mean. Interestingly enough, I think this is the first time he's mentioned that he was better at everything. He was always better. He was smarter than Rob. He was better at fighting. He's better at everything. So it's the first time, and he doesn't feel any guilt about thinking that either.
No.
So it's an emergence of a new John. It's almost like he knows he's going to be Lord Commander. It's almost like he knows it before it even happens.
I mean, he does. He seems to find it amusing at first, doesn't he? And he doesn't sort of
He's not that
reel
shocked.
against it. No, he doesn't seem that shocked. And he seems to just kind of take it. He accepts it, doesn't he? He doesn't go, "Oh my God, I can't do this. No, why have you put me in this position? I'm only 15." He doesn't, there's none of that. But yes, this is it's interesting to get inside John's mind again when he has these struggles. Should I go this way? Should I go that way? This is what I thought I always wanted. And the thing that helps him to come to what he feels is the right answer at the end is Ghost and the old gods and his father's gods, the werewoods and all of that. It's kind of like he comes to his senses and like, of course, that's the answer.
And it's also a good reminder as to why we're not put inside of the head of too many POVs or any POVs apart from Dany that is a king or queen, because John here, as he's getting more confident and weighing up the pros and cons, like he doesn't really explain the decisions to himself even. Like with Val, he just looks at Val and says, "I'm not going to be the one to take you out of there." And it's like, "Oh, so you're not taking Winterfell? Okay, so you have made your choice." And it's a good thing, I think, that we don't get to see inside their heads, because even in dance, when we get to those decisions and you kind of wonder, well, I'm not really that surprised that people ended up stabbing you, John, because you do kind of do a lot of stupid things, or at least from the outside, we've been in your head and we still don't understand why you've made certain decisions. So it's probably, this for me is the beginning of why we won't get inside John's head after dance. I think.
I agree.
But also why we shouldn't be inside the head of somebody in that position that has to make a difficult decision or justify a difficult action, because sometimes it is an instinct thing. And with John here is an example of where it is an instinct thing, literally, because when Ghost shows up, and it's amazing, and shows without a shadow of doubt that John is the strongest warg, right? This moment with Ghost. When he shows up, he just instantly, he goes from thinking about Winterfell, thinking about the hunger he had for Winterfell, thinking about needing red meat, hunger, and then Ghost is here. And he knows it's Ghost. And the reason I say he's the strongest warg is because, unlike Bran and Arya, who need to be asleep, John doesn't need to be asleep to know what's going on with Ghost. So
that's true. Yeah,
he's definitely he doesn't need to enter Ghost in order to feel what Ghost
he's the eldest. He's the eldest with the strongest warg ability.
I mean, what a link.
Yeah.
What an image of them walking into the hall and Jon just saying, "Step aside." It's like, whoa, okay. Ghost is back, Jon is back, all is good with the world. And he walked into silence. Not fully knowing why, but at the same time, I was actually out walking and I was listening to this chapter, and I was just imagining like a dire wolf walking beside me, going, "Yes, this would be so cool walking into a hall."
And I know, well, he's bigger. He's in the time that, because it's been a while. The last time Jon saw Ghost was when he told him to go away. When Corran Halfhand was still alive. Yeah, well, it was just after that, wasn't it? Yeah, it's been a while, and he's bigger. He's much bigger, but he's like skinnier and meaner and Slint, and you know, is absolutely terrified. And so, a beastling walks amongst us. A beastling now leads us, and yeah, it must have been a bit of a sight to behold.
Also, the image of Slint going red and then purple, and Alistair Torren going pale, suggests kind of like, because we've had a lot of those colors to do with death in this book in particular, it kind of does foreshadow that Jon will take those guys out for sure. So
well, they're already plotting. Jon overhears them plotting, doesn't he, against Stannis? But I guess, and at the very end of this chapter, we get the raven coming out of the kettles saying snow, 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 and everybody thinking that, you know, Sam.
So what are your theories behind that? Is that blood raven?
I think that I think what the wall's doing here is giving us an example of how the wall defends itself.
Oh, okay.
Do you get that? You get that scene.
Okay.
I think the wall is defending itself from Stannis' attack against their traditions, against Slint, the newcomer from King's Landing, who knows nothing about how the Night's Watch operate, as you've already said. And I think it's, again, this like connection with the wall and some sort of a link with the old gods. It's the thing that helped Jon realize that actually, no, he doesn't want this. He doesn't want Winterfell, because he thinks about rebuilding Winterfell, which is such a link to Sansa's chapter in the next chapter. She is actually rebuilding Winterfell.
The difference is he thinks
about it and doesn't think it's for him, and you know, this place is not yours.
He doesn't belong. He's where he is at where he belongs already. He isn't.
So I think, and when he's kind of deliberating, though, you know, what do I want? I've always wanted this. And it's being handed to me. What do I want? And he's thinking it through. And he's sat up, like on the wall outside, and it's all, again, the description of the wall being these rainbow colours. And he's kind of like, you know, looking at all of these different colours reflecting in the ice on the wall as he's making the decision that the old gods are the ones that matter, and he's now got his answer. And then suddenly Ghost appears, and it's just, I just think there's so many like magical old magic things going on. The return of Ghost, the wall, and it's rainbow light again. And I think the ravens shouting snow, snow, snow is again something connected with the wall defending itself from, no, we will do it this way. We will have our choosing. We will make sure that the right person is in the right position. And Stannis isn't going to do anything about it. And neither is Janos Slint. We're going to do it the way it should be done on the wall, according to traditions, according to all of the old kind of magic and everything that goes into it. So, yeah, it's a bit of a weird way of thinking about it, but yeah.
It kind of reminded me of... can't remember what it's called in Harry Potter, the Trapean Cup, when Harry Potter's name is thrown out of it. But it's a fix. It's not supposed to happen. It kind of reminded me of that when the Raven comes out and, you know, it lands on his shoulder. and it brilliant at the end with all the guys coming around him, and still treating him like he's one of the lads, and
Yeah.
Sam the wizard, Sam whatever they call him,
Yeah.
and and John only takes a little bit of wine because it's straight to work.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's where he belongs, and when they kill him, man, that's going to be hard to come back from that. That's going to be a Stoneheart moment, I think. Yeah, I just have he just enters the hall like a lord /
Yeah.
boss.
Yeah.
And he's ready for it. He's definitely ready for it. I mean, he's been moping for the last couple of chapters, so he better be ready for it. But yeah. So was there anything else then with John 11?
No.
All right, so then we get on to Sansa 7 and creepy Littlefinger. I want to say that Sansa is a romantic with a capital R. So we've got all this romantic imagery around Sansa, kind of heightened emotions, often sexual, suggestive if Peter's around. Very kind of pastoral, but also rebellious. There's a lot of like any romantics, Shelley, Byron, all them. They're also revolutionary and rebellious, and we definitely get that with Sansa. So I wanted to ask you about Winterfell in the snow and Peter helping her rebuild it. I feel like that's going to happen for real. That she'll use Littlefinger to rebuild Winterfell, whether it's his resources and then, mount his head on the wall for sure. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, when he kisses Sansa, does he do that on purpose to drive Lysa mad? Does he know Lysa's watching?
I think both. I think there's absolutely no doubt that he knows Lysa's watching. If even Sansa has spotted her a couple of times looking down, everyone's watching her. They're all fascinated. All the the household staff are all kind of looking out the window and watching. Everyone's interested in what Sansa's up to because she's acting a bit crazy.
Also, she's beautiful. So why wouldn't they be looking at a beautiful young lady?
I think he probably he knew that she was watching, but I think also he just couldn't help himself. And it was a typical, there's this like, it's that he thinks he's grooming her and like, oh, aren't we having lots of fun? And she's throwing snowballs at him and things like that. And it's this like, oh, look, we're having a romantic moment. So he's engineering all of that, obviously, helping her and like, this is where the bridges should go. She could have figured all of that out herself. But he spends ages there helping her, which I'd forgotten about. I'd forgotten about all of that. Again, I just remembered Sansa feeling the north and building this replica of Winterfell, and then Robert coming along and smashing it. And I remember Littlefinger being there, but just not that he was that involved in like, the rebuilding, and he must have been there for quite a long time helping her make this structure. But I think both. I think he knew Lysa was there, and I think also it's just, this is right, he says to her. This is just right. Yeah.
It's so gross. So gross. And she tries to pull away, but she ends up being pulled closer. And yeah, everything is very gross. So when she's got a lot of strength here as well. But when Sweet Robert shows up, he instantly starts destroying her castle with a giant, his doll, which she rips accidentally and then purposefully. But he kind of has this weird fit then out of anger, but it seems like half fit, half vision. Because he then insists, no, it is a giant. It was the giant that crashed in. And we get a description of his eyes as constantly watering. So there's a suggestion that he's kind of always, perhaps always in a state of seeing or I mean, I am one of those people that buys into the theory that he's got some sort of green sight of some description.
Yeah.
For sure. Annoying little brat though. So annoying. And we also find that Lysa has trained all of the staff at the Eyrie to come running when he has a fit or when he screams out, which I think is going to be important later if those staff aren't around. If Peter takes him out of that situation, I think we're going to probably get a very interesting vision later on. That people won't be around to control. And he may end up saying very interesting things, like a kind of a patch face type thing, maybe. Or maybe.
So do you think he's like a sort of more of a direct conduit for Bloodraven?
Maybe. Yeah, maybe, for sure.
Yeah.
That's a God, I keep talking about other people's theories, but here you go. I'm not sure who it is actually. Is it Preston Jacobs or somebody else, Northlander or somebody, talking about how they don't think Bran was the first person Bloodraven tried to infiltrate or kind of bring to the north. That Euron maybe potentially, but maybe Sweet Robin too. That he's got lots in case Bran doesn't work out. He's kind of got lots of other people that he's trying to, or maybe he's trying to find the strongest green seer.
Yeah.
So that would make sense. Hedge your bets, but
it's interesting. I thought that the Meister, who comes running when Sweet Robin has his fit, and he says it's the bad blood that makes him angry. It's the bad blood that gives him the fits and everything. And I thought that's actually quite a bold statement for that. The household Meister, the Lysa's Meister, to come out and say in public it's the bad blood that makes him angry and have these fits. That's like, so he's got bad blood.
It's kind of like Jane Eyre or something.
Yeah. How could it be bad if John Arryn is supposed to be his father and Lysa's his mother? How's that bad blood? He's trueborn, isn't he?
John Arryn isn't his father.
But that's a really outrageous thing to come out and say. It's the bad blood that makes him like this.
Yeah.
I'd be like, excuse me.
Yeah.
what do you mean by that?
Say to the Lord, yeah, you're right. It's pretty shocking actually. And it's kind of like, as annoying as he is, it's really sad to hear him say, "Oh no, not the leeches, not the leeches." Oh, it's horrible.
Yeah.
Poor little thing. So Lysa summons Sansa, and Sansa says in her head she's not going to marry him. She's going to stand up to Lysa, but she doesn't really get an option. Lysa.
Well, within that, just interestingly, she does think about Tyrion and thinks about preferring to be married to Tyrion than Robert.
Yeah.
So I mean God, that must just be an awful situation to be in.
Well, at least you can have a conversation with Tyrion.
Yeah.
God. Like, it's ugh. And not Peter either. It's still a better, well, he's been very nice to her as well. So it's not that surprising. She's gathered strength from that Winterfell, from the snow, from all of that. And then she's summoned to Lysa, and Lysa tells her this whole story, basically says everything in front of Marillion. Calls her Sansa, tells the story about Cat and the whole triangle, tells the story about the moon tea.
Talks about poisoning her husband and blaming the Lannisters.
All in front of Marillion.
Yeah.
She's mad. She's mental. There's no way Littlefinger could keep her alive after that, for sure.
How she made a baby with Peter.
Yeah, and admits that he even said Cat. He admits that he even thought he was sleeping with Cat.
Yeah.
pretty pathetic. But
this fan you sent me from Japan, by the way, has been an absolute lifesaver in this weather.
Brilliant.
Oh God, yeah. Thank you so much for this.
You're so welcome. You can't beat a fan. So yeah, do you still think then there was more to Hoster Tully's guilt than just tricking her into an abortion?
I think Kat probably did play Peter a little bit. We get the sense in Kat's earlier chapters that she was a bit of a bitch. I can imagine that happening, and her just kind of, just not this sense of entitlement that Kat's always seems to have had of, but he doesn't matter if I mess about with him and break his heart or whatever, because he's down here, so he's like a lower house down here somewhere, so it doesn't really matter. I can just play around with him as much. So there's so much to this where I think I kind of I do feel sorry for Lysa. As nasty and as horrific as she is with Sansa in this chapter, I do kind of feel sorry for her in that she saw what was happening, this weird love triangle between them, Kat dancing and flirting and enticing Peter, and then Peter getting absolutely hammered, and then Lysa crawling into bed with him. And I mean, I think there's also some like a little bit of, like how Robert Baratheon remembers Lyanna as this like completely unrealistic romanticized version in his head.
Yeah,
I think that Lysa's had that as well, but this person's still there. He's still alive. She could still have him. There's this thing that's just been there all her life, like the love of her life. But I think what happened is the reason that she says that father sent Littlefinger away. So on paper and in this chapter, it looks like she was sleeping with Peter, probably on more than one occasion than that particular night, enough to get pregnant by Littlefinger. And the scandal of that meant that Hoster sent her away, and she was lucky to marry Jon Arryn because she was soiled. That's what it looks like, doesn't it, on paper?
Yeah.
That's what she's saying, and that's logically the story that you would come out with. But what if Hoster sent Littlefinger away for a different reason, not for that, and this was all completely in Lysa's head because she was so damaged by childhood exploitation and all sorts of things that were going on potentially with Hoster. And when he said to her, "You are lucky that Jon Arryn will marry you because you're soiled," the reason that she's soiled is because he's soiled her, and he knows that he's lucky to cast her off onto somebody else. I just think that you could read that dialogue very like, oh, this is what she's saying. She's saying that this, she's saying that. But I think she was sent away for a different reason. I don't think...
There's a couple of things with Littlefinger here. First of all, she knows exactly what to do with him when she's drunk. Now, it's unusual for a girl, her first time with a drunk guy, for her to lead like that. That's unusual. It suggests that she says there's a sweet ache and all that kind of thing.
Well, she's quite, what do they call it, sort of...
She's very sexualized.
For her age, she is, which would only mean that she's been exposed or,
perhaps,
to exploitative sexual experiences.
Yeah.
In terms of abuse. Yeah.
She's got this kind of stunted, immature psychology that...
Very, yes.
The other thing is, like, again, whatever Hoster had over Jon Arryn, or whatever political arrangement they had, that he was able to actually get the Lord of the Eyrie to marry his youngest daughter, who is soiled. I mean, how did he even pull that one off? Hoster Tully was definitely a Tywin Lannister type. We've said this before.
Yeah, if not
Like,
worse. Yeah.
Your daughter turns up pregnant. Okay, she's pregnant by a very, not a wealthy lord at all, but still not like the worst, not lowborn. People say that she's in lowborn. So why not just get them to marry and just why is it that in Peter he recognized someone who is very like himself?
Yeah.
Or
yeah,
did Peter refuse to marry her? That could be it. Now, the other thing is, who does the Maester at the Eyrie work for? Because the whole thing about the bad blood, it's Peter that kind of, very, very little conversation. The Maester knows what the order is to drug this boy. How has the Maester been slipping drugs to Lysa for years, maybe?
Possibly. Well, this could be a Maester that's come over from River.
Yeah. Yeah, Sonny says, did Jon Arryn need a wife who could bear children? Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's definitely Lysa would have proven that she could bear children. That's for sure. I think we confirmed that before. Jon Arryn was married twice before Lysa, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that could be it, Sonny, for sure. But there's Hoster Tully is a strange fish, literally.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that as a pun, but it worked out nicely. Especially because, and it still is the weirdest mystery, and I feel like nobody talks about it enough. Why was Edmure never married? So weird.
Just even why was Hoster dying? I don't think it was from old age.
No,
he wasn't that old. It just wasn't. He wasn't like he was wounded in battle, or it just everything about Hoster is a mystery. But I think you could take this a million different ways. There's the obvious way of something happened between me and Peter. I got pregnant. Father sent me away. I was lucky to get to be married to Jon, and that's in boo-hoo. They're my woes. But I think it's deeper than that, and I think it implicates Hoster more, the real story. And I think that you're absolutely right. She has this childish attitude to just even like the fact that she breastfeeds him and he's like, what's 7, 8 years old? That like attachment, she's just completely fucked up in the head.
For pulling Sansa's hair. It's a very kind of schoolyard thing to do.
Yeah.
Like that's not what a woman does to get another woman. Like,
I mean, she's got massive insecurities because she was Cat was the prettier girl, and also in the Winter Garden where where Sansa was building Winterfell with Littlefinger, he says to her, "You're more beautiful than Cat." So Lysa could have overheard that. Initially, this escalates really fucking quick, because initially she actually, and again, I'd totally forgotten this, she talks about having a whipping girl for Sansa. Just confess that you wanted him to kiss you, and for your crimes, I'll have a whipping girl punished on your behalf. Like she's got a whipping boy for Robert. When can that ever be, when he misbehaves? Because she never sees him misbehave, but he's got a whipping boy. So it goes from,
and he
I'll
doesn't
harm
hang out
somebody
with the whipping boy either, and that's the point, isn't it? That's your best buddy. He doesn't really hang out with that whipping boy.
So it doesn't matter. It's just some random local boy. But it goes from, I will just confess to make me feel better, and then I'll punish somebody else on your behalf, to hanging her by a hair outside the moon door. And the bit that flips her, that just completely triggers her, is when and Sansa thinks she's doing the right thing. She thinks if she says, "I'm really sorry, I didn't mean to," it just turns to, "So you admit it then, right?" And then that's the bit where she just is uncontrollable from then on.
the hair. It's the hair, like in the last chapter as well. That's the triggering thing.
Yeah.
She immediately has that hair dyed because it reminds her too much of Cat.
Yeah.
So there's something about this hair that is a real trigger for her.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's something that Peter talked about loving.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, oh God, let's not forget, like, just the way, just how cold Peter is. I've always had one love. Cat, and like boom, we don't even get a reaction. It's like, oh my God,
how you don't even hear it.
How quick can someone's heart break because she doesn't really have that much time? But yeah, but even, and if you think of the Tullys, Edmure and the Blackfish, and what we know of Hoster and definitely Cat, for them, like, they use the word to cut you. They use the word to get back at you. Like, they're not quick to physical violence, these people. Like, it's very much, you know, they're schemers. So the fact that Lysa just reacts in such a violent, immature, underdeveloped way, like it suggests a broken childhood. It suggests something fundamentally is broken in her psychologically. Or a toxicity as a result of either the moon tea, or maybe she's been poisoned by her maester. Maybe this maester is working for Littlefinger. Because
maybe.
How have they ever gotten to the point where they need to make drugs with this little boy? So there could be a lot going on here with Lysa, but we won't ever know probably because she's gone now, out through the moon door, and with Sansa's shoe.
Yeah. But Marillion, again, with Littlefinger being cold, he gets immediately and conveniently blamed for everything, for all of it. And I guess, again, very clever from the reader's perspective, you're kind of thinking, oh, Littlefinger's a bit of a good guy here because he gets rid of Lysa, she's a real baddie, and he gets rid of Marillion. Brilliant. He's actually not that bad. And I can kind of remember feeling that the first time I read this, of like, oh, maybe he is, you know, he's a creep, and he's, you know, he's like complete sort of, you know, he's got ideas above his station, blah, 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 what have you. But yeah, you know, he was put down when he was young, and he was told that because of where he came from, he would never amount to anything. And you know, he's kind of looking out for Sansa. Don't really know what his motivations are at this point, but I can remember thinking because it comes very fast, this chapter, on the heels of Tyrion killing Tywin. So it's just like bam, 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 like drama of these big characters just being taken out at the end of this book.
And also, like, we have Tywin, then we have Jon's election, and then we have this, and it's like, well, Tywin dying and the manipulation to make Jon Lord Commander, and Lysa dying, the world is probably a better place because of those three things. And the manipulation around them. That's for sure. But I mean, would Littlefinger, did he have to kill her at this point for his plans to work? That's hard to know. Like, is it an instinctive, she fucking tried to kill the woman that I really love. She has kept me from the woman that I really love. Who knows? I could have won Cat back. Had she not bloody gotten pregnant. Maybe.
And she's now messy. She's almost killed whatever potential future I could have with Cat 2.0. You know, and he. I think it was just an opportune time of like, whoa, okay, we can't. You've got to go. We can't come back from this. You need to go.
It might be one of the few times, if maybe even the only time in the series so far, that we've seen Littlefinger act outside of a plan, not plan the move, and act from a real place of emotion in the moment. It might be the only. It feels like that for sure. Because especially when he says it to her, I love Cat. It's like, oh, I don't think he planned this.
Yeah.
And because he's even like, oh, let's not say too much in front of Marillion,
Yeah,
and so
I don't think he had planned it now, but I think he took advantage of that moment, definitely.
It's a great moment.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant moment, it really is. So yeah, so that's all I have for Sansa 7. Do you have anything else for Sansa 7? Yeah.
No.
So then we're on to our only Frey chapter, right? We don't have another Frey POV unless we get one.
No.
Be interesting to see. Merritt Frey, our epilogue, he's on his way to Oldstones to negotiate with the BWB.
Yeah.
To get Peter Pimple back. And some great lines here, actually, from Frey here. He great insight into what it is to be a Frey as well. Sonny says, I think Peter kissed Sansa in front of Lysa, and he knew Lysa would eventually try to kill Sansa. Yeah, so yeah, that's what I was wondering earlier. Yeah, for sure. I don't know if people, I don't see a problem on my channel here with our stream. I hope everything is working okay. But Connie mentioned buffering, but it seems fine on my end, so hopefully everything is okay. Yeah,
it's working on mine.
Okay, cool. So yeah, so Merritt Frey, he has a great line at the beginning about the snow in autumn and how it's unnatural and a bad omen. This snow in autumn, and even though it doesn't stay very long, this isn't a good sign. So
yeah,
it kind of suggests that the Freys are a little bit behind everybody else in recognizing that winter is coming, and it's coming fast for House Frey. And we have that great line from Arya in season 7, of course, or season 6, season 7, 6. Anyway, anyway,
I can't remember.
Anyway, one of these kind of, the unfortunate thing is that we don't get enough information about the Freys, I feel, in this chapter, because he's got these blinding headaches that is keeping him from fully thinking out full thoughts and things like that. But he says he kind of notices something with a tail following him.
Oh, I didn't notice that.
And says that outlaws don't have tails, and it made me wonder, is it Nymeria?
Oh.
Because there's something in the bushes, and it says thank you, AU. It says that, he said, I'm just, outlaws don't have tails. It's just my imagination.
Okay, that was definitely a wolf then. Yeah.
So it's like he's being stalked, and also he's got an itchy nose, which means there's a fight coming.
Yeah.
So,
or he's allergic to wolves.
Or he's allergic to wolves, like Freys should be. But yeah, there's just a couple of things. Yeah. So we get an interesting insight into the Frey. God, I have said this for every chapter. Another great Preston Jacobs video is the Frey Civil War. And the succession battle that's probably lying ahead of the Freys here. And we have it here that Blackwalder has probably cuckolded his father, and that if all the male line are killed, which is what happens in the show, they kill the male line, and there's a couple of women still standing when Arya walks out. But that they're potentially that the girls left. I think there's 2 girls very high up in the line of succession, that one of them at least is probably a bastard. And where does that leave them in terms of their wealth and everything? And just interesting, like he says, he can't even consider hedge knight as a job. He's the son. They're
just all going to be pushed away. What happened? They're all absolutely terrified. What happens after the big guy goes? It's son versus son, and Merritt Frey. It's quite interesting that we have a spotlight on this particular Frey, I think, in this chapter, because we learn that he was a squire. He was a squire when Jaime was a squire, so he would know Jaime. He he's got two fairly famous daughters. He's the father of Fat Walder, and he's also the father of Gatehouse Amy. So that's two famous, like, Frey girls.
And great names.
Yes, and great names. And also his wife is a Darry.
Yes.
And they were half wiped out by Robert because of the links to being Targaryen loyalists. But yeah, I think but Black Walder sounds like an absolute horror, doesn't it? We don't hear that much about him apart from this. He's sleeping with Peter's wife and others, so he just seems to be doing what he wants. I think you're right. I think he's probably got, I mean, like, how much power does Walder Frey, this 92-year-old, we hear in this chapter that he's 92, so there's not much time left, but how much power has he got, and is he holding? And it just, this Black Walder sounds horrific.
It's like he's Walder Frey is like Saddam Hussein.
Yeah.
It's like when you take out the dictator, then they all start killing each other. It's like it's like this kind of it's a real fear with people with seemingly logical phrase like merit. And I think you're right. It's an interesting POV to pick, because he's like, they're going to, nobody values blood the way, the patriarch does. Nobody would go out. None of the other Freys would go after Peter Pimple. They just say, right, he's on his own. It's just another Frey that's out of the line of succession now. That's great. So nobody, like, whereas Walder Frey is really like determined. No, there's no Frey left behind. And as soon as he's gone, like, they really will start. It may not even take Arya coming in and killing all of the Freys at once. They may just kill one another.
This is what I think is likely. I think they probably will. I think after I read this chapter, I thought, okay, we've got a spotlight on the Freys here for a reason. Like, oh, by the way, those horrible Freys, that horrendous family that were involved up to the necks with the Red Wedding, and like, speaking to the kind of reader's experience at this point, the Freys are the enemy, or one of the enemies. They need to be taken out. And look at this, they're in an absolute mess. Once the big guy's gone, then there's no decent heir. They're all infighting. They're all, there's nothing good coming out of the Freys, or redemptive that's coming out of the Freys. So we need some way to get rid of them. We need some way. And then, of course, at the end of this chapter, we get the introduction and the wonderful description of Cat as Lady Stoneheart.
And ironically enough, the only Frey that Walder Frey trained to be like him and like-minded, Severin, was killed. For Robb, was killed fighting for Robb.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's actually the Starks kind of are taking them out anyway.
Yes. Yeah. That's true. It's true. But I think from the, I suppose I'm trying to get into the head of George, but also from the perspective of the reader's experience at this point. I just read this chapter and thought, oh, right, I get it now. Lady Stoneheart is just purely a literary plot device for vengeance around the Freys. The reader must have vengeance for what happened, for the Red Wedding, for, and we've already it's been described in, there's nothing about the Freys that can be pulled out of this that's just get rid of them. They're in disarray. There's no one taking over. There's the ones that are decent, like, is it Oliver Frey and possibly Rosalind, depends on how much she knew about what was happening with Edmure. There's maybe 2 or 3 Freys throughout the series that you kind of, as the reader, you'd think, oh, well, if you pluck those ones out of the situation, then just decimate the rest of them. I don't think in the story, in the book, that Lady Stoneheart will ever move out of the Riverlands. I think she will always be round the twins, because I think her primary function as a literary plot device is to get rid of the phrase, or at least that's her aim. I'm not saying that that will happen, and I think probably they will just implode and destroy themselves, but I think she's there for the reader so that all of those people that threw their book against the wall at the Red Wedding and said this is outrageous, it can go, oh, we've now got an anti-hero that we can pin all our hopes on for vengeance in this story. And I think that that's... Oh, you frozen? Are you there, Kat?
Oh yeah, sorry, no, we just lost you for a second.
Yeah, oh right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying that. Did you get up to the bit where I said all the people who threw the book at the wall?
Yes, exactly. That it'll implode. Yeah.
And that it's for them. It's for all the people who just, it was too much. The Red Wedding was too much, and we have to have revenge and vengeance. So she's for that. She's for that plot device. I don't think she will ever move out of the Riverlands. I don't think she will ever bump into any other significant characters in the story. I don't think she'll reunite with any of a
well, apart from
children.
Jaime.
Yeah, possibly.
Yeah,
but I don't. In terms of her reconnecting with the Starks, I don't think that's her anymore. That's not what she's about. It was war and it was vengeance. And I think the reason that we're not ever going to see her in the TV show is because if in the books she's this huge plot device that's introduced now, and it builds and it builds and it builds and it builds her story arc around vengeance and the connection with the phrase, that's going to be a really delicious thing to read in the books. But it doesn't. It's one of those examples of something from a literary perspective and the book reader's experience that doesn't translate to TV, because they can just blow up the twins like that and get rid of the phrase. They don't need Lady Stone. They have no need for Lady Stoneheart, because they can get revenge televisually in a much easier way than George is doing in the book.
I feel like George was so annoyed with the Lady Stoneheart thing. I wonder, is there something more that arc of vengeance has to say about maybe the nature of justice? I don't know. There's something. I think she will meet other bigger characters. I don't know how. And I'm not really sure because we're left on such a cliffhanger in Feast with Brienne that I'm not really sure where it's going to go. But the show let Arya take vengeance, as Sonny says. Yeah, I do think that Lady Stoneheart is going to do something horrific.
Yeah,
I think she's going to do something horrific, like really bad. That like, as much as we dislike Kat for what she's done to John, that I feel like there may be like child killing or something coming with Lady Stoneheart that we really
see. The way I see it is, it's almost like, and this is where I got the links with the Bhagwan, is she can't speak. There's no point or reason really for her to speak, because she just is
pure vengeance,
a manifestation of vengeance. Well, so she doesn't need to speak. She's a figurehead of vengeance, basically.
It's kind of like the opposite, like what I was saying about Lysa, how Lysa is just like purely reacts with violence and not her words.
Yeah.
Whereas Kat always chose her words carefully to hurt people or to compromise with people in her life, like especially with John. Very cutting words, and John has put up with an awful lot of injuries, and yet it's Kat that her words haunt him the most. And yet now in death, Lady Stoneheart is the opposite. She doesn't have the ability to use her words, so it is just a pure physical manifestation of rage.
Yeah,
for sure. Yeah, you're totally right about that.
And she doesn't even need to. In a way, you could take out Lady Stoneheart, but symbolically, she's still there as this figure. You know, you could still have, like, the Brotherhood without banners could become some kind of like cult for vengeance.
That's really important. I feel like that is really important.
Yeah,
their transition, the split from them, like just vigilantes working on behalf of the small folk
Yeah.
to this like vengeance kind of that's really, really significant.
Yeah.
Do you,
and I don't think she. So it's like, you know, it's frustrating for us that she can't speak as a reader, because you want to hear what she thinks of the, you know, you want to hear about the aftermath of the Red Wedding from her perspective, but from a symbolic and kind of poetic point of view. But just again, that I was just thinking about that documentary and the fact that he didn't speak for 3 years, and it's like, well, he didn't have to, though.
No.
And the fact that he didn't, all of the things that happened around it, you know, he could have just been a cardboard cutout at that point. And I think almost as we go forward, that's kind of what it's going to be like for Lady Stoneheart. She's just literally a symbolic figurehead for a missile of vengeance, whatever. It's basically a Frey killing machine at the moment.
Also, there was no way they could keep going under Beric. Beric was becoming less focused, less purposeful. They couldn't keep rallying around Beric. And even like, we know that his identity was in flux, because they're now all assuming Beric's identity, taking turns playing with it, just because they didn't even really know who he was by the end of it. He was so remote from the Beric that had purpose that Ned gave him. And here they have Kat who's just like, she doesn't even need to have, like, no matter how many times they bring her back, it'll still be the same figure.
Yeah. She could have like her entire head wrapped round with bandages and just like, you know, I mean, the fact that he recognizes who she is from her face, but you know, her hair's white and her skin is just shredded from where she kind of, you know, just did this to herself at the Red Wedding. But it just,
I do think we will see some Nymeria Stoneheart action, or Arya Stoneheart action.
I think that would be a great pairing, actually, if those two
Nymeria
got
is around
together.
her.
Yeah,
Nymeria is around her. So
whether and maybe she knows that, and maybe it is this. But again, is this? You could even go as far as saying that Kat or Lady Stoneheart is the physical manifestation of the old gods being really pissed off that guest right was broken.
Yeah.
And that's what they're sending. That's what they're sending back to the Freys to say, no, that was wrong.
And it's funny because Merritt Frey asks for wine and they won't give it to him. So they won't, like, even in this plate, like, they won't offer him any kind of
guest right is important still. Yeah.
That's gonna, like, that's key for them too. So
which would mean that Kat is linked to the old gods, which would mean that the old gods are linked to the R'hllor and the Red God. You know, that it's kind of like maybe there is an overarching religion that is kind of for some reason these other religions have fallen out of that, but actually it all really relates to the old gods.
It's funny though, like, even they know they're going to kill Merritt Frey, but they still keep up the lie that Beric is alive. It makes me wonder, they must be really afraid of her.
Yeah.
Because even when they know that, like, they need to keep lying to themselves, maybe, that Beric is still there. I don't know. It's a very strange thing. Why bother lying to Frey at that stage? Because he's not going to tell anybody. She's no one to continue that lie with. It's a very strange thing that I wonder, will they abandon her at some stage? Will she just take them all out? Will something really horrible? Because she needs them, right? But maybe she doesn't. Maybe she'll get somebody else to kill on her behalf later. And Merritt Frey then, as he's dying, he tries to shift the blame to the father alone for the Red Wedding, and his job was just to get John Umber drunk, and he didn't even do that. And the Great John. That's or John Umber. That story, you know, that he's still fighting with his teeth as the ending. Great, but yeah, so that's it for Storm of Swords. So I wanted to ask you just very quickly. In hindsight, Storm of Swords tends to be a lot of people's favorite book in the series, and it is definitely action packed. I think once we get into Feast and Dance, the plot and the intrigue gets very convoluted. Not in a bad way, although maybe sometimes in a bad way. But Storm of Swords is definitely more action packed. This time round reading, what was your highlight for Storm Swords?
I think these final chapters, these last 5 chapters, where it all culminates in a couple of big characters being taken out, and then, oh my God, that epilogue with Lady Stoneheart, and like, oh my God, Cat comes back. And it just completely blows your mind. But I think it is, in a series of books like this, you have to have one book that is the pivotal kind of transformer book, where you go from learning about the characters and their backstory and their motivations to things changing around, and like, okay, so somebody's here is on a bit of a redemption arc now, and somebody here is on a vengeance story arc, and somebody, everything starts to kind of like, here's the reason why this is happening, and this was this massive event. So big events happen, and characters' motivations seem to change until you get to the next part of the story, which I find the most interesting, which is where you really kind of can dig around a little bit more in particular characters. Anyway, there was, I mean, as much as I love Feast, there was definitely like, oh, I really miss certain characters. Yeah.
There are for sure. And some of the chapters in Feast are so action light that you do miss that about Storm. I have to say, just speaking about action-packed chapters, my favorite chapters are those initial Sam chapters that are really like horror chapters, and just reading them again. Coming out of Clash and a Game of Thrones, where there isn't any like political intrigue or families fighting, it's just purely the horror of the others coming. I forgot how much I enjoyed those chapters. Those initial
they were
ones.
completely full on action packed.
Really
the first 2 or 3 of Sam's chapters, I think. But yeah, fantastic.
Yeah. And any POVs then that you enjoyed more this time around? For me, it was Sam and Jaime, but they're new, so I guess Sansa. Sansa,
I'm enjoying Sansa's chapters, and possibly Jaime chapters more. I always enjoyed Sam and Brienne chapters.
Jaime and Sam are so well written as well. Also, it's been ages since we've seen Davos, so yeah, we haven't had any Davos chapters. And then finally, who are you looking forward to in Feast?
Sam. And Sam and Brienne. I remember Brienne's road trip with Pod is just phenomenal. I love those stories. And
even
is Dany in? No, Dany's not even in Feast.
Dany, Jon, Tyrion disappearing.
Wow. Okay.
And Bran. I think.
Ooh, okay.
So for me, even though it's called A Feast for Crows, which I still don't really. Oh yeah, because Sam, I suppose. For me, when I think of Feast for Crows, I think Ironborn. I'm really looking forward to the Ironborn.
Yeah, so, I've totally forgotten about the Ironborn. Actually, we've not had any.
And Dorne, of course. Have we? No Theon, nothing in this book. So I'm looking forward to the Ironborn. When I think of Feast, that's what I think of. So, and Clash actually, but definitely Feast. So So
we're taking a break.
Yes. And in case you haven't seen it, let me just quickly flash the chapters on screen so you can definitely see this here. So yeah, we obviously we have Cersei coming up. A lot of Cersei. We've more Cersei than anyone else.
Chapters.
And Cersei is I think Cersei and Arya. I'm pretty sure it's just Cersei who's who's in both dance.
Yeah,
and
Cersei is
feast.
definitely one that I'm looking forward to. Totally forgot that we get Cersei
I'm
chapters.
pretty sure Cersei is also the only POV who appears in both. I could be wrong about that.
No, Jaime appears back
Jaime
in
appears
dance. Yeah, but halfway through.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that's our feast schedule. So it's going to be exciting. I can't wait, and it'll be over on my other channel, so you don't have to put up with nails anymore. The link is in the description. Thank you so much for migrating, and thank you for joining us here, and thanks for being in the chat. We will see you on the 22nd of July. So thank you so much, Claire, for doing Storm.
You're welcome. I'm looking forward to feast.
Yes. All right, folks. Enjoy your break, and
Bye.
we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye.